Here's what's coming up on today's show.
I mean, you got to go with your gut. Even if you don't know a lot about investing or our industry, you got to go with your gut. If something doesn't feel right or sounds too good to be true, don't do it. There's always a catch if things just seem too good to be true.
Hello, this is Mark Silverman, managing member and founder of Silverman & Associates, and I'm also a certified financial planner professional. I want to welcome you to the Saving with Silverman podcast. I'm glad you're here. Each week, we'll discuss different financial planning topics because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Got a quote here from a guy by the name of George Monbiot. Not sure who that is, but what he says makes sense to me. He says, if wealth was the inevitable result of hard work and enterprise, every woman in Africa would be a millionaire.
That's
Boy,
true.
I agree with that, man.
That's true.
They have to work so hard just to survive.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
You know, walking for miles to get fresh water.
Right.
All that kind of thing. My
Yeah.
goodness. Well, let's talk about something a little more related to the way most of us live here. Advisor characteristics. There are a lot of different people out there giving you advice and telling you how you need to do business with them and all that kind of thing. But explain why these characteristics are important in a financial advisor and how you determine if an advisor has these characteristics or not. This is aimed at the listeners out there who may be trying to make a choice. Maybe they think, hey, this Mark Silverman seems like a really nice guy, but I want to check out all these other folks too. So, Mark, tell us about trust. How does someone decide if somebody is trustworthy? And is this just as simple as a gut feeling or what's involved here?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, you got to go with your gut. Even if you don't know a lot about investing or our industry, you got to go with your gut. If something doesn't feel right or sounds too good to be true, don't do it. There's always a catch if things just seem too good to be true. So as far as trust, we're in the trust business. So, for me to work with someone where they're going to provide me all their financial information for me to build them the plan, and in a lot of cases for us to manage their money and turn over their life savings, they've got to trust that person. And that comes not only just having phone calls, but also meeting in person and face-to-face. So if you're going to work with someone, I know a lot of people these days, a lot of stuff's done, phone calls and Zooms and stuff like that. But initially, if you're working with someone, we try to meet with everybody face-to-face before we engage in a relationship. So, and for both our sakes, we want to make sure that, we're going to get along with them just as well as they're going to get along with us. So, it is a trust business, and trust is earned. It takes a while to earn somebody's trust, but it can be broken very quickly.
Well, relationships. It's all about relationships, for sure. And I know you built a lot of long-term relationships as long as you've been doing this. But likability is certainly a factor. And I guess, you need to figure out whether this is somebody you'd enjoy working with. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you got to like if you got to like the people you're working with. If you don't, it's probably not going to be a good relationship. We tend to work with like-minded people. So another reason why we encourage, getting together in person before we do anything, before we take on a relationship. And if you don't like the people, you don't see eye to eye, you don't agree with them, and maybe they're not somebody that you can see having a relationship with both ways, then it's probably not somebody you want to work with.
There are advisors out there with a lot of different specialties. And how do you know if somebody has the right skill set for your situation? In other words, areas of expertise. There's a lot of difference out there with folks, but how do you know if this particular person is good for what you need?
Well, one way is to make sure they're a CFP. If they're a CFP, then you can be guaranteed that they're well-rounded and they've been vetted and know what they're talking about. And they have to. There's continuing education. There's a test. There's a lot of things that go involved. So I would, if I'm going to entrust somebody with my money and my financial plan, making sure they're a CFP. That doesn't mean they're good advisors that aren't CFPs, but that's an easy way to vet those people out. A lot of these people, especially here on the radio, are there just selling products, particularly insurance or annuities. And if they're pitching you a product on the first meeting, they're probably doing that with everybody. There's no customization. They're just selling commission products to everybody. They're not really looking out for your best interest. They're looking out for their own.
Yeah, how can you possibly recommend something as good for a person until you actually know them and know what they're all about?
Right, and people do.
Yeah, and you mentioned CFP. That is so important. Mark Silverman is a certified financial planner, CFP professional. So Please remember that. Certified Financial Planner Professional, Mark Silverman, and not everybody has that designation. Another thing that, if you're looking for somebody to work with, you need to have someone who has the ability to listen. How do you know if an advisor is really listening to you and your concerns? Lots of times folks meet with a financial person and they just get the feeling that this person's not really listening to them. They're thinking about the next thing they're going to pitch.
Right. Well, I mean, that's kind of what we just talked about, right?
Yeah.
Somebody that's they're pitching a product. They don't really listen to you. They've already got the product. They've already got the application. They've got everything waiting to go so you can transfer your money so they can get their commission. What's the saying? We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, so we could do more listening and less talking. But, we put our time in. When we build a plan, there's several meetings involved. We're collecting lots of information. So we're not even making recommendations until we've done our homework and assessed everything about their financial picture. So if somebody's not taking the time to look at everything, then the advice that they're giving you is not really advice. It's just a sales pitch.
Yeah. We talk all the time about how I'm having trouble getting the words out today for some reason, but we talk all the time about how, when somebody comes to see you and they get an assessment of where they are and everything, and sometimes they're really surprised, and sometimes you're able to find problems with folks and able to give them maybe a quick fix or maybe a little advice on how to make things better. How does an advisor find problems that a client doesn't even know exists?
Well, having done so many different plans for so many different people, everybody's situation is different. As I tell people, if we do a plan for you, it's going to answer all the questions that you have and then questions you don't even know to ask. And so that's really what it's about is, just trying to protect people, guide them, and making sure that they're considering things that they may not even have considered that could be pitfalls and things like that as far as their financial plan, their financial future. So we're making sure that we're addressing everything so they have the best possible type of retirement that they want. And so it's just, it comes from experience. I've done this over 30 years now. So, I've seen lots of different things. And there's still things that I see now that I haven't seen before. So that's what kind of keeps me engaged is seeing different people's situations. And the investment landscape keeps evolving too. So I've got to stay on top of my game as well.
Yeah, and this is, something that you need to keep in mind. Mark Silverman does not have an agenda. He doesn't have a product that he wants to sell you right away like some people do. I mean, he's not pushing insurance products or annuities. First of all, he wants to get to know you and find out what it is you need and what kind of help you can use getting to and through retirement. If you'd like to have a conversation with Mark Silverman, it's easy. All you got to do is call 520-333-7601. 520-333-7601. He does not end up working with everybody who calls. And you may not want to work with Mark. Hey, that's fine. It goes both ways. 520-333-7601 is your number to check him out. Call or text. Then you'll get a call back, and you can plan a time to have your complimentary conversation with Mark Silverman. You can also, if you want to find out more about Mark's business, go to savingwithsilverman.com. His office in Tucson, and there are folks all over not only Arizona, but a lot of other places too who count on Mark Silverman for helping them get to and through retirement. One more time, that number is 520-333-7601. You've been listening to the Saving with Silverman podcast. If you have any questions at all about your financial situation, please give Mark Silverman a call. Again, his number is 520-333-7601. Or go online to savingwithsilverman.com. For Mark Silverman, I'm Ron Stutz. We'll see you next time on the Saving with Silverman podcast.
The Saving with Silverman podcast is brought to you by Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, based in Tucson, Arizona. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and everywhere you listen to shows. Subscribe to the show on your favorite app today and never miss an episode. Just search for Saving with Silverman to find us, or visit savingwithsilverman.com to listen to past episodes, to contact Mark, and to learn more about how to make smarter decisions with your money.
Did you know that Mark Silverman also has a radio show? Tune in to Saving with Silverman Saturdays and Sundays at 3 p.m. on AM 790 KNST.
All matters discussed on this show are for informational purposes only. Opinions expressed are solely those of Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC and staff. All topics covered are believed to be from reliable sources. However, Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC makes no representation as to its accuracy or completeness. This show shall in no way be construed as a solicitation to sell securities or investment advisory services to residents of any state other than Arizona or where otherwise permitted. Topics should be discussed with your individual advisor prior to implementation. Fee-based financial planning and investment advisory services offered through Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Arizona. Insurance products and services are offered through Silverman & Associates, an affiliated company.